Sorry. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our 5th podcast episode, and we are doing our episode on the case of
Darlene VanderGiesen.
She was a deaf woman that was from
Sioux Falls, North Dakota.
Sorry, I have problems pronouncing that sometimes. Okay. And she was brutally murdered, everybody. Okay. There are some cases that confuse you, the details don't line up, the evidence feels incomplete, and you're left guessing. This is not one of those cases. This is a case where the facts are clear, the evidence is overwhelming, and yet, somehow, it still refuses to settle. It lingers, it sits with you, and the more you understand what happened, the more unsettling it becomes.
Because in this story, it is frightening in a cinematic way. There's no stranger in the shadows, no sudden chaos. It is strange with how ordinary it begins, how familiar the danger turns out to be.
Tonight we're talking about the death of Darlene Kay VanderGiesen. And this isn't a story about a mystery that went unsolved. It's a story about trust, how it's built, how it's exploited, and how devastating the consequences can be when the wrong person is given access.
And fair warning, this episode isn't designed to shock you quickly and move on. It's designed to slow you down, to sit you in the details, because what happened to Darlene didn't happen all at once.
Who was Darlene? Darlene Kay VanderGiesen was 42 years old at the time she disappeared. She lived in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and by all accounts, she lived independently and with intention. She had routines. She had relationships. She had a life that followed recognizable patterns. Those patterns are important because when they were broken, people noticed almost immediately.
That's something that comes up again and again in this case. Darlene didn't drift out of her life. She didn't slowly pull away from people. She didn't stop answering calls one by one. Her absence was sudden, and most sudden absences always mean interruption.
Darlene was deaf, and the fact shaped how she interacted with the world around her. It affected how she communicated, how she navigated unfamiliar situations, and how she determined who was safe. For Darlene, trust wasn't just emotional, it was functional, and it was necessary.
Being vulnerable doesn't mean careless. It means the world requires you to rely on others in ways that hearing people often don't have to think about.
Darlene relied on people she knew, people she trusted, people who had earned access to her time and her space. The context becomes critical when we start asking how she could leave with someone without fear, without resistance, and without anyone thinking someone or something was wrong.
Because when trust is part of survival, suspicion isn't always an option.
It started out a normal day that didn't end normal. February 5th of 2006 began like any other day in Darlene's life. There was no reports of distress, no known arguments, no messages suggesting fear or uncertainty. Nothing about that day suggests it would be her last.
And that's what makes part of the story so heavy, because if there had been any warning signs, if someone had seen her upset or afraid, it would have given us something to hold on to, but there wasn't.
From an investigative standpoint, the absence of distress is meaningful. It suggests that Darlene did not believe she was in danger. She did not attempt to seek help. She did not alter her routine in any way that suggests self-preservation. So that means
what happened next likely happened with someone she felt safe with.
There's no evidence that Darlene planned to leave town, No packed belongings, no unexplained financial activity, no goodbyes. In missing person cases, these details matter. People who intend to disappear usually leave some trace of preparation. Darlene didn't.
Her life didn't wind down, it stopped.
When Darlene failed to show up where she was expected, concern grew quickly. Friends and family noticed absence, calls unanswered, messages went unread. For someone as consistent as Darlene, this kind of silence was immediately out of character.
That's when silence stops becoming neutral. It becomes maybe she's busy and starts becoming something heavier, something's wrong.
Law enforcement was notified, and early efforts focused on retracing Darlene's routine. Investigators contacted known associates, checked familiar locations, and attempted to reconstruct her last confirmed moments.
Those early hours in cases like this are always strange. There's still hope, but it's fragile. Every passing moment stretches thinner.
And before law enforcement was contacted, it was Darlene's work who contacted her parents, and her parents came all the way to South Dakota, and they were the ones who went to her house and noticed that she wasn't there, but her phone was plugged in still to the wall. And her being deaf, that was something that she needed because of translating if somebody didn't know sign language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she always had her phone on her, is what her friends and family would always say. So to not have her phone was weird. Also, do you remember where she worked?
She worked, I'm not exactly the name of the place, but she worked at a place that made like trophies and things like that. It was like
Yeah,
some
her
type, I
family
think like a
was
warehouse. Yes.
so she herself, just by herself, had moved to North Dakota. So her family had to travel from Iowa to North Dakota to come check on her.
And she moved to South Dakota because in Sioux Falls there was a deaf community there, and she wanted to be at a place where she felt more comfortable with other people that were deaf.
Yeah, I believe it was an apartment complex
Yeah.
that had all residents that were deaf living there.
The discovery of Darlene's car marked the first undeniable shift in the investigation. Her vehicle was found parked in front of a Pizza Hut parking lot in Sioux Falls. It wasn't damaged. It wasn't abandoned in a rush. It was locked and placed there.
And that detail alone changed everything because it wasn't chaos, it wasn't fleeing, it was intentional.
Inside the vehicle, investigators found some of Darlene's belongings. Others were missing. That partial presence is significant. It suggests interruption rather than intention. An evening that did not unfold the way she expected it to.
Yeah, and if she went somewhere, she would have taken what she needed, but instead she just left everything as it was.
So honestly, obviously the car was placed there.
That's what it seems like, yeah. And we'll get
And it
into
was
details.
actually a lady in the Pizza Hut that noticed the car and called the police to report the car sitting there.
Yeah, I don't want to like jump the gun and move ahead, but there's also another theory that I heard about this Pizza Hut story. But I guess I'll wait. I'll wait to the end
Okay. Or
because I don't want to move ahead too fast.
okay. From an investigative perspective, abandoned vehicles are often treated as silent witnesses. Their location, condition, and contents can indicate whether someone left willingly, under distress, or was removed from the situation entirely. In this case, the calm presentation of the vehicle suggested control.
Yeah, so someone had time. Nobody was panicking.
Right. It was like maybe she knew the person.
Yeah, and this, yeah, yeah. I don't want to say what I think until later.
As investigators worked backward from the vehicle, they began focusing on Darlene's social circle. This isn't. Sorry. Victims of violent crime are far more likely to be harmed by someone they know than by a stranger.
And this is where the story starts to narrow because in a way that feels deeply uncomfortable because familiarity is supposed to mean safety.
One individual acknowledged being with Darlene on the night she disappeared. Initial statements suggested nothing usual and had happened, that Darlene left safely without incident.
But when investigators compared those statements to timelines and emerging evidence, small inconsistencies began to appear.
Inconsistencies don't automatically mean guilt, but they do mean attention, and once attention shifts, evidence has a way of speaking louder than stories.
And that is where the case begins to shape.
Up to this point, there's no violence on record, no visible struggle, no public alarm, just a woman who trusted someone she knew and never came home that night.
And that's what makes what comes next so difficult, because once investigators stepped inside the space where Darlene was last seen, the silence speaks.
We will walk through the investigation as it turns inward, toward someone Darlene trusted, and the first piece of evidence that made it impossible to look away.
Okay, so you want to do like a little recap right here?
Yes.
So, if you're just coming in, we're talking about Darlene VanderGiesen. She was a woman from Sioux Falls, North Dakota, who was a part of the deaf community and who was brutally murdered. So far, we are talking about the part where she is now missing noticeably by coworkers and family members. Her last whereabouts was a Pizza Hut where her car was left abandoned.
Great. Okay. Which, like I said, it was said in some of our research that it was a lady from Pizza Hut who noticed the car and contacted the police.
No, I'm just going to say this part real random, throw this in. I heard two different things. So I heard, and this seems to be the truth about her going to Pizza Hut to meet up with this mystery person, but I also heard that she did not go to Pizza Hut, that she went to the mystery person's house instead. And so that's just what I wanted to throw in there. But obviously there's more evidence her whole car was at a Pizza Hut, but I heard a whole other theory where she went straight to someone's home and that's where everything went down. But just thought I'd throw that out there because I heard two different things. But obviously there's evidence if her vehicle was at a Pizza Hut. So
evidence suggests interruption rather than escape. The focus turns inward, toward routines, toward relationships, towards the people who had access.
because now it's not where someone might be. Now it's about who the victim could be with.
Law enforcement began reconstructing Darlene's final hours by interviewing people within her social circle, friends, acquaintances, people that she trusted enough to spend time with alone. This approach wasn't based on suspicion, it was based on probability.
Which is hard to sit with because probability doesn't care about how well you think you know someone.
The last person to see her
Talk about it.
during interviews, one individual acknowledged being with Darlene on the night she disappeared. This wasn't concealed or denied. At face value, the admission appeared cooperative.
But cooperation doesn't always equal the truth.
The initial account was straightforward. Darlene was dropped off safely. Nothing unusual happened. The night ended normally.
Except the obvious, Darlene never came home.
Investigators documented this statement and continued verifying details. Timelines were compared, movements were checked, and that process unfolded. Inconsistencies began to surface. Not dramatic contradictions, but subtitle shifts.
Those are often the most telling because they don't sound like lies at first, they sound like adjustments.
In criminal investigations, inconsistencies are evaluated carefully. People misremember details all the time. Stress affects recall, but when inconsistencies align with emerging physical evidence, they take on greater significance.
Especially when the changes always move away from accountability.
Investigators began to notice that certain details were flexible, times, locations, sequences. Each shift on its own could be explained together. They formed a pattern.
And patterns are what investigators pay attention to.
And this is when law enforcement had to make a critical decision whether there was enough cause to escalate the investigation. Search warrants required justification. They required evidence that something more than a disappearance has occurred.
And that's not a decision made lightly, because once you cross that line, you're saying something very specific, that you believe a crime may have taken place.
The combination of an abandoned vehicle, inconsistent statements, and the absence of any evidence suggesting voluntary disappearance provide that threshold.
And this is when investigators entered a space that would change the case permanently.
Okay, before we move on in the case, so Darlene's parents came. They notified the police. The police came, and when they started the initial search, they went on, they checked her emails, phone records, and everything, and Darlene was on many dating websites.
Mm-hmm.
And they saw that there was a guy she was talking to, and they were together on occasions.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to take that part away?
You want me to jump forward, or because I'm going to say what you know?
Yeah, you can say.
So the police did investigate this man that she was seeing on and off, and they found blood in his truck. And obviously that's concerning. But after they did their investigation, they determined that it was deer blood and not blood from Darlene. So ultimately, the man that she was seeing was ruled out as a suspect.
Yeah, but before that, he was like, they went to his house and he wasn't there for like a couple days.
Yeah, it was sketchy.
After she was reported missing.
Yeah.
And then he finally came back, and they definitely thought they had a person, because they said he was acting like very nervous, like, and like scared. But I mean, like, if people are coming to you and questioning you,
Yeah.
you're probably going to be nervous too. But he said he was nervous and like acting that way because he was worried for Darlene and if there was something wrong.
Yeah. And you're probably just trying to say all the right things to make yourself.
Right.
I mean, not that he had anything to hide, but trying to make them believe him, I guess, in a way. That probably makes you seem more nervous.
Also, during this time, they found emails with Darlene between, it was another woman. I probably should have wrote her name down. I forget the name. I want to say it was like Heather or something. Or Jessica. Something like that. Something very Caucasian like.
Talking about Daphne?
Huh?
Talking
No.
about.
No, no, no. No, no, no. No, but remember, so they did like, the cops were like looking, it was a fake email, and then they like tracked the IP,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
went to one of the people that
Oh my god.
Darlene ended up being friends with.
Yes.
It was her under her roommate's name.
Yes.
So like they go and question the roommate, and the roommate's like, I don't even know, what that is. And it
Yeah.
ended up being Daphne Wright.
Yeah. I forget the name too. Yeah, she was getting emails from somebody, like basically threatening her.
Yes.
Like they were just threats every day, but they were poorly worded also. Like they were kind of worded as if like a child type of
So
them.
yeah, like when we were doing research and we were watching things, so the investigators and stuff said like that because they were deaf. It's not like they had like the proper, how do I explain it? Like how we could say a full sentence, like the dog walked down the street. Like the way they said things was like how these kids nowadays go. Let me see.
It was like the
What's it?
pronunciation. It was like
They couldn't like make like full sentences, and it's just like um it was just crazy things that she was saying, but it just like it was like hate you bitch, and but it was like different wording that she would say, because
yeah,
like they said like this, the subject line would literally say in these emails, I hate you
yeah,
and I'm gonna kill you and things like that in
yeah.
the subject line. And you guys are probably wondering who Daphne Wright is. So Daphne Wright is the girlfriend of another woman named Sally, who was friends with Darlene. They were all friends, but Daphne started getting jealous of Darlene and Sally hanging out together.
Daphne and Sally
And
were together. They were in a relationship.
but
And
then yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
oh, no, I was gonna say I think Sally lived in the same complex as Darlene.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
So that's how they became close and became friends.
Yes.
But Daphne, yeah, got jealous of their friendship.
Um, she thought that Darlene wanted to be with Sally, but Darlene was into men, while Sally and Daphne were both lesbians and they were together, but they thought that, she thought that Darlene was trying to get with Sally, and that wasn't the case at all.
Right.
Like, Darlene's like, hey girl, I'm into the men's, you know. Okay. So after they figured out that it was Daphne, Daphne was brought in and she was questioned. Um, and like the things that she was saying just wasn't adding up. She was the last person to see Darlene
Yeah,
alive.
yeah.
Um,
Back at the Pizza Hut.
yeah, back at the Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
So they ended up going to do, because the way that Daphne was acting, they ended up going to Daphne's house. And this is when they started searching the residence. that was connected with the last known individual with Darlene, which is Daphne, right? Their attention was drawn to the basement. Basements are often significant in violent crimes because of their isolation. Separate from main living spaces, often hidden from the view.
You can continue.
They're quiet places and private places. During the search, investigators discovered blood evidence. This finding immediately escalated the case from suspicious disappearance to potential homicide.
Because blood doesn't exist in a vacuum. It means injury. It means violence. It means something went wrong.
This is why the blood evidence changes everything. Blood evidence is one of the most
Definitive?
Yes, definitive. Sorry, I lost my spot. Indicators of violent crime. Unlike fingerprints or fibers, blood directly ties an environment to physical harm. In this case, the quantity and placement of the blood were inconsistent with an accident or a minor injury. So this means that there was blood, like lots of blood.
Yeah. And once blood is found, explanations stop being hypothetical.
The forensic analyst who identified indications that cleaning attempts had been made. Cleanup suggests awareness. It suggests time, and most importantly, it suggests intent to conceal.
Which directly contradicts any claim that nothing happened. So, can I just go on a little
Yes. Go ahead.
here, what they found specifically?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, they found cut marks in the floor of the basement of Daphne's basement, and one of the investigators made a comment about how it smelled like really strong odor of paint, and it looked really freshly painted over. So that was also another detail.
Which was crazy because, when you look at pictures of the crime scene photos, it wasn't like it was like he painted all of the walls. Like, she painted a spot on the floor. She painted spots that were on the wall.
Yeah.
And they said that it was the way the paint was, they could tell that there was something underneath the paint on the floor.
Yeah.
Because of the blood.
Do you want to continue into that, or
What do you mean?
do you want to just continue what we know, or do you want to just go back in law enforcement?
No, we can continue with that. Also, so Daphne's roommate was I guess they questioned her too and was like, so you didn't see nothing? And she was like, well, she was down there for hours and she didn't know what was going on. I mean, she found it strange. And then she said that Daphne started bringing, I guess she cut out pieces of carpet that had blood on it, was bringing that up, and bags of trash, and it was just her whole everything she was doing was weird. Her demeanor was off. Everything was just weird that she was doing.
Yeah. So there was enough evidence, obviously, to go get a warrant to search her home. And then once they get there, there's markings on the floor, there's fresh new paint, the strong odor.
Investigators begin correlating physical evidence with behavioral patterns. Statements were reevaluated, timelines were rechecked. Every inconsistency was now viewed through the lens of forensic reality.
And suddenly, explanations that once sounded plausible didn't hold up anymore.
Law enforcement Law enforcement also examined actions taken after Darlene disappeared. Purchases, movements, gaps in time, post-offense behavior is often one of the clearest indicators of intent.
Because what someone does after a crime often tells you more than what they say about it.
Okay, so in this time, as they're talking about purchases and movements and gaps in time, do you want to take that part away so you can explain that?
The significance of time?
The purchases.
Oh, sure. I'm just going to go off of what I know. So they did find receipts from Daphne from a local hardware store where she purchased a chainsaw. And one of the cashiers did make a comment to investigators saying that when Daphne came into the store, she handed him a note just asking where the chainsaws were. And he led her to where the chainsaws were, and she purchased the cheapest one. But also, and you know this, Ash, because we were talking about this, she waited until she got, I guess, her check to come in
Yes,
to
because
do
she didn't
this.
have enough money.
Yeah. So she, I mean, I don't know how long she waited, but it was that's just another detail in the case. So this was very much done with intent and
Like,
was planned out.
right. She waited for a check to come in to get money to purchase a chainsaw to kill somebody. Like, this was very intent. I'm not
Which
laughing about
wasn't
it, but that was
even,
just like crazy.
and the chainsaw was the aftermath. That wasn't even the reason of death, which is crazy.
Right.
So that's just an extra sick layer. She
Right.
just said, let's do some cutting. I mean, I'm not trying to make a joke, but I don't know. That's just
Well,
crazy.
like it's like so obviously they were in the basement, there's all the blood. That's obviously where she did the cut in. So how are you going to move a dead body out of the basement without your roommate seeing?
Yeah.
So that's a thing too.
Yeah. Purchased the chainsaw. Multiple witnesses. They see the marks on the floor, the investigators, so that adds up. The blood everywhere. And now we're just
Yeah.
looking for a body.
Went there and I don't know if you said the cashier said that like
Yeah.
Daphne was stressed out
Mm-mm.
because
No, I did not say that.
she was like looking at all the prices and she didn't have enough money in her account to buy the chainsaw, so she had to wait for the check to come in.
Yeah.
Weeks after Darlene disappeared, her remains were discovered in multiple locations, including a landfill and in a rural ditch in Minnesota. This discovery confirmed that what investigators already feared, but had not yet been able to prove. So before we move on in this, her body, so how her parts of her body was found, in that time, um, it was I guess at the time where in South Dakota, they got a bunch of snow, and
Yeah,
there
I
was
remember that
got
too.
one of the county workers, his name was Keith, was out plowing, I guess for a couple days, and he kept on driving by, and he seen a black garbage bag sitting in a ditch, and he kept going by, and he kept on telling himself oh, that's strange that that's there, and he told himself he had to stop. So on the day that he did stop, he discovered Darlene's. They didn't know it was Darlene yet, so he discovered the upper torso and her head. So her head was wrapped in a bag, and there was like a cord wrapped around her neck.
Yeah.
And I think like the bottom half of her, they said it was like burned.
Yeah, but that's what they found in the landfill in Minnesota, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, that's crazy. Two different
So,
states, two
yeah.
different parts of your body.
Um, they, in some of what we were researching, it would say that her body was not like spread into different states, but where her body was, parts of her body were found, was considered in Minnesota, but it was like a border of South Dakota and Minnesota. So that's why they said it was just in South Dakota, but it was technically in Minnesota because it was only, I think they said, roughly about 220 or 202 miles away, like from in South Dakota. But I just wanted to add that in. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even know that. I didn't realize it was that far.
So parts of her remains were actually found within Minnesota, Rock County, which borders South Dakota. However, the main dump site near Newton Hills State Park, which is outside of Canton, South Dakota, which is just a distance from the state line, which were where her other parts were found. So that's what that was. But it was remains found in. Sorry, I'm repeating the same thing. I'm sorry. Repeating in Canton, South Dakota, and then additional remains were found later, recovered in a ditch in Rock County, Minnesota. So, sorry.
No, you're fine.
I don't know why. I just had to say that and get that out. Okay.
No, it's okay. So do you just want to go into autopsy findings?
Yes. The autopsy revealed blunt force trauma and evidence of suffocation. These findings established that Darlene did not die instantly and that force was applied intentionally.
So I guess that's where the chainsaw comes in. It was after she was dead.
Yeah.
Is when the chainsaw was used and they cut up her body.
Right.
Well, Daphne, not they.
It says these actions occurred after death and were consistent with efforts to destroy evidence rather than respond to an emergency.
Let me see where we're at.
Okay, so we're
a little lost, sorry.
Once investigators had forensic confirmation that a homicide had occurred, the nature of their work shifted again. This phase is about translation, turning physical evidence into a story that can be clearly understood by people who were not there. Prosecutors don't just present facts, they present sequences. They explain how one decision leads to another, how actions connect, and why those connections matter.
I have zero idea where we're at, to be honest with you. I apologize.
When investigation becomes a case. Because in court, evidence doesn't speak for itself. People have to listen to it, absorb it, and believe it. Prosecutors began organizing the case chronically. The goal was to show progression, trust, access, violence, and concealment. Each piece of evidence was placed deliberately within that timeline so jurors could see not just what happened, but how it unfolded. And when you see it laid out that way, it stops feeling random. Behavior as evidence. In homicide cases, behavior often becomes as important as forensic findings. That someone does before and after a crime can either reinforce or undermine their explanations. In this case, post-offense behaviors become a central theme. Because there were choices made that didn't line up with innocence, prosecutors focused on actions taken after Darlene disappeared, cleaning, purchasing tools, moving remains. These are not reflective behaviors. They require planning and time. In court, that distinction matters. It shows intention, not panic, not confusion. We're at the power
I'll
of
put this
sequence.
out, but what part are we on?
The power of sequence.
What number is that? Oh, all right. I'm good. All right. I'm good.
One of the most effective strategy. Oh my god, I can't speak tonight. I don't know why I'm like all over right now. Strategies is sequencing. Jurors are walked through events in the order they occurred, so they can understand escalation. Here's the sequence: was critical, initial contact, private setting, violence cleanup, tool acquisition, body disposal.
Each step that makes one step harder. I read that way wrong. We'll cut that out.
When jurors understand that sequence, it becomes difficult to believe alternative explanations. Accidents don't follow the pattern. Self-defense doesn't require concealment.
And coincidence doesn't repeat itself this many times. Anticipating the defense.
Prosecutors also had to anticipate how the defense would respond. When physical evidence is strong, defenses often focus on interpretation rather than denial. The question timelines, challenge intent, and attempt to introduce reasonable doubt through alternative narratives.
But doubt needs space to exist.
Space was limited. Every alternative explanation had contend with multiple independent forms of evidence, pointing in the same direction.
Blood, tools, behavior, distance.
Prosecutors also walked an emotional tightrope. Presenting graphic evidence carries risk. Too much detail can overwhelm jurors, too little can leave gaps. Courts are careful about how such evidence is introduced.
And you could feel that tension in the room when those moments come up.
Photographs, autopsy findings, forensic testimonies were presented. The goal was clarity, not shock. Jurors needed to understand what happened without being emotionally shut down by it.
Because as we know, once people shut down, they stop listening. The courtroom atmosphere. Let's talk about it.
Yes. So as the trial progressed, the atmosphere in the room reportedly grew heavier. This often happens in a case where evidence accumulates rather than explodes. There's no single dramatic reveal, just a steady realization.
That slow realization is almost worse.
Jurors watched as each piece of evidence reinforced the last. Blood evidence aligned with autopsy findings. Tool purchases aligned with tool marks. Behavioral analysts aligned with timelines. So, when they went into the basement, they found the blood, but I forgot to say in this, now that I'm reading it. So when they found the blood, in the blood, they found bone fragments.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
They took like the DNA from Darlene's toothbrush and hairbrush, and that's how they discovered that the blood and bone fragment belong to Darlene.
Correct.
Also, while in the courtroom, obviously Darlene's parents, both of her parents were in the courtroom during this. So, when they were showing like graphic things, like it was said that her mom broke down and would like have to leave the room for like some things after seeing it, which I mean that's totally understandable because I would be the same way.
Right. Of course.
And it was like they said like it was like Daphne like it was just like it didn't bother her.
Yeah, she showed no emotion until the final verdict.
Right. Okay. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
So this is when the jurors begin to shift. There's a moment in many trials where jurors mentally shift from questioning whether a crime occurred to evaluating responsibility. That shift is subtitle, but it's powerful.
It's when what if becomes why.
That shift likely occurred once. No single piece stood alone. Everything reinforced everything else.
And that kind of consistency is hard to ignore.
Sorry.
The human cost in the room. Let's talk about it.
Okay. Even when jurors reach that phase, the human cost remains present. Testimony about violence, dismemberment, and concealment is not abstract. It's heavy and it lingers.
You don't hear things like that and walk out unchanged.
Courts acknowledge this reality. Jurors are instructed to take breaks, to manage emotional responses, to rely on evidence rather than reaction. But emotional processing still happens quietly.
And long after the trial ends.
So, like, just imagine how they were, like, I wouldn't even know how I would feel watching, all this evidence, like, be brought, like, because they showed, like, everything, like, the body, like, all of that.
There was zero reason that she had to be cut in pieces.
Right.
Like, I mean, there was zero reason why she had to be murdered.
Right.
Because even the whole reason why she was murdered wasn't even true. Daphne thought that they were having like a secret love affair. So Daphne thought that Darlene and Daphne's girlfriend were having some secret love affair, and Daphne got jealous, and that's why she killed Darlene.
Yeah.
But just having to cut up the body and then separate it is just extra.
Yes, it was very...
Like something's wrong upstairs.
Yeah. By the time prosecution rested, the case was no longer a collection of facts. It was a coherent narrative, one supported by science, behavior, and sequence.
So now we are in our part 5 of our notes. We're going to step back and look at the psychology behind what happened, how control, access, and subtle red flags can exist without ever triggering alarm. So we are going to talk about psychology, red flags, and forensic reality.
Control is a central theme. The setting was private, access already existed. There was no need to overpower somebody, publicity, or risk interruption. From a behavioral standpoint, that suggests a preference for dominance without witness. Which means the danger wasn't loud, it was contained. Use a victim's natural defenses without anyone choosing danger.
It's not that warning signs were ignored, it's that they didn't look like warnings.
Right. Another physiological feature evident in this case is compartmentalization. That's a big word.
Sounds right to me.
Sounds right to me too. We don't have to edit that part out because the ability to separate actions from emotional response. This trait allows an individual to commit violence and then transition into logistics, which is cleaning, purchasing tools, and moving the remains.
Which is something people really struggle to understand. We expect horror to come with panic, with breakdowns.
I'm not even. Compartmentalization allows a person to function. It's not about feeling nothing. It's about prioritizing self-preservation over empathy.
And that calm can be mistaken for innocence.
Okay, so real quick before we move on. So even though this is really it's about Darlene too. Not Darlene. It's about Darlene, but it's about Daphne too. So Daphne as a baby, she had some type of thing that happened.
Yeah.
I forget the name. I probably should have did better research. Y'all can burn me to the stake later, okay?
No, it's okay.
So I'm gonna put
Nothing that
she had
affects
something which caused her to go deaf in both ears. And there was something with her mom too. Oh, her mom ended up putting her in a school for people that were deaf. It was like her mom couldn't handle her being deaf, or they just kept getting into it. They didn't get along. After her mom passed away, they said I'm pretty sure they said something about she had a mental break or something, and
Yeah.
she wasn't right after, obviously,
But still, that doesn't mean that you have to go murder somebody.
no. Well, that's why they said it. So, there's things we didn't add into here that we probably should have, while we were doing the research. There was a time where Daphne went over to Sally's house, which was the girl that she was dating, but Sally didn't want to be with her, because of the way she would act. And the one time she went over there, Darlene happened to be there, and Daphne just lost it. They were arguing, they were fighting, and they all just kept going back and forth. And then Darlene was like, you know what? This really don't have nothing to do with me. So she peaced out.
Yeah.
And which ended up, it was said that Darlene and Daphne they made up and stuff like that. So that's another thing that's crazy, because she said that to her mom, her mom knew there was problems between her and Daphne at first, but they ended up meeting up and squashing their beef and were friends and stuff like that. And I guess that's why they went to Pizza Hut and hung out.
So I heard supposedly Daphne had asked Darlene to help her with a party.
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
No, I didn't.
That was the lie being told to get Darlene to meet up with Daphne. And I think this was all in the same week, very close to each other, after they had squashed their beef and made up and stuff. So I guess Darlene believed it and went to go meet up with her, and then all this happened. So that's why they ended up at the Pizza Hut. That's what I heard, that that Daphne wanted to throw a party for Sally. So she asked Daphne for her help, and that's what drew her to the Pizza Hut. And then I guess she just somehow lured Darlene into the car and brought her to her house and killed her.
Right.
You agree? I think we could just go into the verdict about what they... Right? About how do you feel about that?
Yes. Okay, so but also before all of that, while they're in the courtroom, obviously you know how it is, the defense team and so they're trying to do anything to make it seem like, I guess, like it wasn't intentional. So they're like using everything. And
You got
also
a
like
little chainsaw. How is that not intentional?
right. Just
Like,
cut a whole person up.
right. You were doing extracurriculars after. Like,
After dark
that's
activities.
the
So, obviously, like, you know, the defense team, they always like try to go against so deliberation and verdict. The jury deliberation represents the final stage of this process where emotion, evidence, and instruction meet. Jurors are asked with setting aside sympathy and focusing on proof beyond reasonable doubt. So, fun fact, not fun fact, but I mean, it's a sad fact for Darlene. But Daphne was the first woman that they wanted to what is it? How they like
She was the first woman, or the first woman to be found guilty for murder in the state?
no,
Isn't
you
that
know
what
how
it
like they make a decision on like how to be sentenced with the death penalty. They were trying to give her the death penalty and she would have been the first woman and
Oh, yes,
to
correct.
get the death penalty in South Dakota.
North Dakota, right?
No, South.
Oh, my bad.
Okay. Obviously it was a guilty verdict. She got sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Reflected not only the taking of a life, but the deliberate actions taken after were to conceal that loss. So, not only did she kill her, but she chopped her up and carried her and put her in different places. So, that's a reason why she got the possibility, without possibility of parole.
There was multiple charges.
Yes, there was. Multiple charges. I don't think I have them.
How do you feel about that? Do you feel like she should have got the death penalty, or do you like that they got that she's life?
So
in
like
prison?
I understand why people like are all for the death penalty because they're like, "Oh, well you took that life, your life should be taken." But I feel like it's not really like a punishment. Like they should be sitting behind bars and they got to live with that every day and think about that every day. Like I'm locked basically in a cage because I killed somebody. I can't go out and do anything. So now I'm going to sit here and rot.
I agree. And I believe her family was happy with the verdict as well.
The family was happy with the verdict. I'm pretty sure happy with the verdict too. Hold on, sorry. Disposal, appeals. It was said that mom in the courtroom ended up talking to Daphne's parent, mother to mother, and said, you know, not only did I lose my daughter, but you lost your daughter too. Which, I mean, like, that's real. Like, and it wasn't like she lost her daughter to death. She was like, you lost your daughter. And, like, she was, had sympathy for her mother too. After Daphne killed her daughter. Like, she still had sympathy for Daphne's mother.
Yeah.
So.
That's sweet. I think, in a way. That's nice.
I do feel that because, like, her mom is right. Like, not only am I lost my child, you're losing your child because of your child's actions, what your child did.
Yeah.
But, which is weird because I think it might have been, like, either like a foster mother, because it says that Daphne's mother died or of like a long battle with cancer. And one of the things that I researched, so I'm not sure if it was like maybe her grandmother.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Maybe her grandmother or
Yeah, a parental figure definitely passed away
yeah,
from cancer. I thought it was the mom as well.
because like I guess like her and her mom, like they didn't get along and stuff like that. But what do you guys feel about that? Like, how do you feel? Like, do you think she should have got the death penalty? Do you think justice was served?
So sad because it wasn't even true. Like what you killed her for.
Right.
She just assumed that she was having an affair with her girlfriend and she wasn't even interested.
Right. Like, she was not
She had a whole man.
a whole
Well,
man.
she was talking to a whole man.
Right.
So that's the whole reason why she was murdered, is Daphne was really jealous and wanted to get her out of the picture, but now you don't even have your girlfriend. You're in jail.
Right,
Prison.
because it was said that Sally was like in the courtroom like crying and everything because of what Daphne did, because she considered Darlene like a really close friend.
Yeah.
It is sad. Things like that happen every day that we don't know about. I felt like this was a good case. It was a solved case. But
Pretty
yeah,
recent. It was 2007.
right. What are your guys' thoughts on, like I said, do you think she got justice, or do you think she should have received the death penalty?
And I see Jen's comment about in some jails it's like being on the street. I heard that. I did hear like some jails, I don't know, I get that vibe. Like I feel like some of them aren't as brutal, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on what type of prison you're in. Um, like if it's like the ones that are like maximum security, like you probably are like just kept in a cell.
Yeah.
Usually, that would be it. We usually do our sources, where we got our sources from. So we listen to a couple of videos on YouTube. You could just type in either Daphne Wright or Darlene Kay VanderGiesen. And then there's an episode on Forensic Files titled Hear No Evil, and you can watch that right on YouTube.
Yep, that's where I watched it.
This is covered on shows like Deadly Women.
That's kind of weird.
There's podcasts. I wrote them down too. Hold on. I was doing all of this in case anybody wanted to go, so we can cite where we got our stuff from. So I listened to The Deaf Woman Brutalizes Her Perceived Romantic Rival, and that's true crime with Bratterstein. And like this is like a love triangle type thing, but like Darlene didn't want her
At all. Darlene's like, I don't even swing that way.
Darlene likes, Darlene